Well, hello traders and investors. I'm LA Little and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. Take a look at these markets from a neoclassical perspective, looking at supply and demand on the charts, using that to make determinations about what happens next. Do a show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursdays, broadcast at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube and under the channel LA Little. If you haven't subscribed and you want to, just reach up in the right hand corner and do so. Anytime I push public content, you'll get a notification. Sell off today. So we get the Fed comes out. Initially, they tried to push this higher. Those early buyers got caught. They had to flip. Ended up down as a result. We didn't get huge losses, especially in the NASDAQ, the NDX, 0.3 on the NASDAQ, 0.5 on the broad composite. NDX was 0.3. Looking at the Russell, it was down again. 3 out of 4 days now, underperforming 1.27. It's coming back pretty fast. As we look at the S&P, almost 1% down. Look at the Dow, a little over 0.5%. Overseas, down pretty much across the board. You got the Nikkei up tonight as the yen gets crushed again off a surging dollar. Broad markets in Europe, slightly down but not huge. I suspect they'll take a little bit more hit tomorrow. Big story tonight is dollar. Dollar index up a full percent almost. And that crushes gold and silver and oil. All of them down pretty big. Let's go to the charts, and I've got the S&P up. We'll look at it first. We'll walk through indexes, and then we're going to go to the dollar. Here's the S&P. So you got a little buildup in volume as you come off the top. You didn't test the top, so you didn't leave volume at the top. This is volume off the top, but you really don't have much volume comparatively. I don't view this as a terrible thing. I think it's just more of what we've seen before, and that is you got a pullback starting to take place again. If you look at it just from the perspective of where can it go, right? That's a high volume, wide price spread bar. 2, 3, 4, 5. It's probably close to being high volume. I don't know if it is or not. I'm just eyeballing these down here, and it looks like it might not be. And then you got a pullback. Let's see here. Yeah, so this is the bar. This is the first bar, and then you pull back into this area here. So this is the first place that we get to get a test, right? And we'll be able to see what it does when it comes into that. That is not that far. I think you'll probably hit it tomorrow, 2241, and you're sitting at 53. We're talking about 12 points. That's certainly doable come tomorrow. If we go back to the other indexes, take a look at those guys. Let's go to the NDX since that was the one that held up the best today. Inside day, a little less volume. Now, this one actually did come back and did a bullish retest regen. So you got a swing point high here that was broken. Actually, you broke 3 of them or 2 of them on the way up. There's one there and there's another one here. Given the fact that you're coming back within 6 bars, right, you would expect it to test down into the lower third, which happens to be the overlap area between these two. So that area right in there. Now, what it did do tonight, and this will be a tell tomorrow, is it did get into the swing point high, was unable to break back into it. Comparing volumes, breakout volume and the bar coming back, you got a little bit less, but they're pretty close, 19, 20. It's not that much difference. So we certainly could test it again tomorrow, but so far, actually, the test looks pretty good. If it does get in deeper, I think about that 49 to 48.95 area is probably where you're looking. NASDAQ composite, the broad composite, a little bit different situation. Swing point high is a little deeper. That's probably what it's going to try to do. It did an under over. It's kind of hanging. It's kind of a bearish engulfing almost as well. So kind of mixed picture there. If we look at the Russell, now the Russell's actually, and the Russell's got 2 things going. One is it's got a bullish retest regen off this Thanksgiving day, or actually that Friday after Thanksgiving, right? No volume up there. That's a bullish retest regen. Now, the nice thing about it for the Russell is you're coming back after more than 6 bars, right? So tomorrow will be the 7th bar. So if you count them out after the breakout, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the 7th one, what does that mean? Probabilities are pretty high that you're going to get a bounce on that test. And so from the Russell's perspective, it actually set up pretty good. That top is 1347. You're 9 points away. that can certainly hit that tomorrow. So if we take all of them together, yeah, it looks like probably going to get a little bit more push to the downside. And that's where we're going to get the test. And the expectation is you're going to see these markets bounce when they hit that test. Moving over to the currencies. First thing you got to look at is the dollar. Dollar breaks out today. It's going to break a swing point high today. So these charts will show a breakout tomorrow. That's the break, right? You get over it. Comparatively, you got more volume. It's going to be a confirmed breakout in terms of the volume. That should try and leg higher. Now, if it does, right, and if you pull over the monthly charts, legging higher here would take you over these highs. And so that's the big thing that's taking place right now, is now we're going for the high in the UUP. Now, if we actually look at the dollar index, that index shows a different story, and that is that the dollar's already broken out over those highs. Now, the UUP, because it's an ETF, there's some fees that come out of it, right? And over time, they make a difference. So you can see here on the index itself, it's already broken out, and it's legging higher is what it's doing. It's broken out on all the time frames. So the dollar looks to me like it's pushing higher and going to try and continue higher. And that should be a headwind for the U.S. markets over time. I don't know that it will be initially, but it will be over time. If you look at the euro, euro going the opposite direction, of course, breaks to the downside, breaks with volume. You've got it on the weekly, you've got it on the daily. Here's your weekly. You can see the break. It's under those swing point lows. It's legging lower. And if you go to the monthly, you've also broken on the monthly as well. And so dollar up, euro down, yen down, right? That puts juice into those markets as they depreciate. Here's the yen, big leg down today. You can see it coming all the way back. And if you watch me a long time, sometime back we were talking about this, right? It's about 3 months ago. We were talking about this bearish retest regen. It did more than it should, and that is it got all the way into the top part of this after way more than 6 bars. But it eventually turned and ran back the other way. That's a regeneration, right? That's what should happen. That is what's happening. This thing's regenerating to the downside, and that's making, of course, the Japanese equities go the opposite direction. And speaking of equities, let me get that out of the way. Speaking of equities, let's go take a look at, well, not equities, but let's go take a look at the gold market. And the reason for that is the gold looked like it had a potential setup to reverse yesterday. And what I mean by that is if you look real close here is what took place. You got to this bottom, right? You got under, back over, less volume down here. This was trying to set up to finally, right, push back to the top side. No dice, folks. Back down the other way. We thought it was discounted. The Fed was discounted in terms of the rate hike. You know, maybe the idea that the Fed comes out and says, well, there may be 3 rate hikes instead of 2 next year. Maybe that's what did this. But whatever it is, you know, clearly this is a trend to the downside, has been a trend to the downside on these time frames for sure. If you look at it here, if you look at it on the weekly, it's a downtrend. And if you go to the monthly, it's the only one that has a shot of trying to turn this around. And that shot is a test back here on this swing point low. That's what we're coming into now. And if that doesn't work right, your last real hope is here. And so it's getting close to those price points we've talked about. That's where you're going to have to see what it does when it gets there. 107.35, you're almost there, 108.83. That's going to be where the rubber meets the road. And either we're going to see this market find its footing and show us that it really is trying to turn, right? Something like that. Or this is reasserting itself. The odds actually favor this scenario from the perspective of a sideways trend, but that doesn't mean it has to do it. It just means, you know, you got slightly better odds to go this transition back the other way. But when we get the test, right? We'll get enough information, we'll get more information, that is, that will tell us whether or not that's probably going to take place. Remember, this is a monthly. And so, you could get under this and back over it and still hold. So, if you get underneath that price point at 107.35, don't think that's the end of the world because, you got the rest of the month to play out. I was asked by one of the members to take a look at the actual chart of gold. Now, I pulled up the futures chart. The note that I got was that they look a little bit different, but what I just talked about it's the same here, right? It's that same price point. I've got the monthly up on this one as well, and it looks the same to me. So you're back into that little swing point low over there right now, and if you get deeper, you're going to test into this. That looks pretty much the same as the gold chart I just showed you. So I'm not sure what the difference is that he was noticing. As far as what else is happening, last night we talked about copper. I didn't get to show the JJC, which is the copper market. That's still hanging up here pretty nicely, right? On the daily, on the weekly, and you've had a pretty big turn on this monthly. That was a 21% gain on that monthly chart. It's going to take a while to digest that, right? But, swing point lows are way up here in terms of bearish retest regen. So, this may have just made maybe the first of two potential moves to the top side. And I was talking about that in the context of the copper producers in terms of the stocks, right? We talked about the COPX. We also talked about one of the individual stocks, FCX. If you look at FCX, right, it's still holding, but it's looking like it is going to try to come down. When we talked about this last night, we talked about this area as the buy. Well, it got under it, stayed under it, which says now, right, these are game on. So you can come down into these big bars now. And so that's probably where this one's going to try to drive to, somewhere in this area. And I think that's where one has to think about their second purchase if they made their first. If you go and look at the oil market today, oil itself got pretty whacked on the way down. I don't have the actual oil chart. I can pull up the USO though and show it. It has a kind of a proxy. It's not exact, but it gives you some flavor. Oil had made a breakout on the weeklies and the monthlies, although the monthly is not over, the weeklies were. But now it's back, coming down 4% today, roughly. What I wanted to show you is there's a stock inside this group, right, this sector that's pretty strong. ANW, which got really slammed today, big volume on it as it came back. The problem with a stock like this, if you're in it or you want to get in it, is you come back with way too much volume. Something's going on. I mean, I haven't even tried to dig up the news. Your swing point high over there, this is your bullish retest regenerate. It's already back into it, and it's back into it with huge volume. And so when I see something like that, right, it just really turns me off in terms of this particular name. Now, there's other names in the group. You could even look at, just the like the XLE or something, which is a lot less volatile than some of these individual names. They're going to be good plays as they come back. All of them have these big bars. They're going to try to come back into almost all of them, individuals and ETFs. And you look at the top and you look at the bottom of those bars as they come back. And that's where I would be focused in the coming days. Question right now is, what kind of pullback are we going to get, right? We finally got something started. You still got a little bit of a mixed signals on the indexes. They don't look that bad is what I'm saying. It looks like they could come back just a little bit more. But the real question is going to be, do you find those buyers? I mean, they've been so eager all the way up. Do you find those buyers come in and support this at the earliest opportunity they get? That's going to probably be tomorrow. That's the test. That's where you want to watch. If you can't close back over that and you get into this about a third of the bar, you're going to go for the bottom. That's what you measure against. That's what the probability suggests. All right. Market finally looks like it might take a break. I was telling mentors this evening that we were going to do more volume today. and we were going to come off the top with some volume. As a result, looks to me like we're going to trade down for a day or two at least. That's still my impression after reviewing these charts with you. So have yourself a good one. I'll see you next time. Good night.